Welcome to All Things Work, a podcast from SHRM. I'm your host, Anne Sparaco, and this week we're talking about how organizations can effectively move women into leadership and executive roles and why employers really want to do that. And to provide more insight and expert opinion on this is Jennifer Broerman Spencer. And Jennifer, you are the Director of Global Diversity and Inclusion for Lenovo.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Ann.
Yes, very excited to hear what you have to say about this, about women in leadership roles. We know you are a woman in a leadership role and you've done a lot, especially 10 years ago with Lenovo. You took on this big task to bring more women into executive roles, and you were at the forefront of this transformation. Can you dive into that a little bit? Give our listeners a little background?
Sure, absolutely. So if we rewind that clock 10 years ago, as you said, to about 2014, there was a dip in our executive leadership. Literally, it was trending downwards when it came to the representation of women. And it hit an all-time low point of 14%. Well, why is that a problem? Uh, the problem is that over 30% of our workforce were women. So when you have this big disparity between representation of leadership and your employee workforce, we could see that this was a problem. The workforce was trending up, but executive representation of women trending down. And that's when we started to intervene. It was a tremendous red flag for us. We knew that it wasn't trending in the right direction and we had to take an intervention. And so that really started with that data point, going to senior leadership and saying, let's do something around our women to support their development into the executive roles. And that's why, when and why we engaged with SHRM Enterprise Solutions.
Once it was addressed there was an issue here, what were some of the goals you and your team members took to envision this transformation? What strategies did you take as well?
I think there were two main strategies that we employed. I think one was around the women themselves, and that's where the story of SHRM Enterprise Solutions comes in. It was really supporting women and the unique challenges that women have and may face in their careers, some of the hurdles and barriers that men don't often face. So that's where we engaged again with SHRM Enterprise Solutions to create our Women's Leadership Development Program. For short, we love acronyms. We call it WLDP, but our Women's Leadership Development Program. The second strategy, though, was also around that time within HR and as an organization, we decided that you focus on what you measure. So we created our first goal around global executive representation of women at the executive level. So having a goal to reach for and better equipping our women. That's how we tackled this.
It's not just in the United States, not a national thing you're trying to address. You're talking on the global level,
Yes.
very different situations in different areas of the world. Can you talk about any obstacles or challenges you faced and how you tried to overcome them and maybe some success stories here to inspire people?
Yeah, that's a great question. Lenovo is a truly global company. We support millions of customers in over 180 different markets, and we have employees literally, in hundreds of countries as well. So first, we were intentional about making sure we had diversity from different parts of the globe into this program. The one great thing that SHRM Enterprise Solutions brought to the table was this advancing women's leader model. It is based in research and it is globally applicable, but that doesn't mean it doesn't look different in different areas. So maybe, for example, one of the competencies is bold. Bold looks different in the United States for you and I versus what bold might look like in China. And so it was really important to discuss these competencies and have these incredible coaches and facilitators from SHRM come in to help women unpack what does bold look like here? What does it look like here? And knowing the difference is okay.
Mhm. And when you wanted to achieve that goal, because like you said, there's so many different factors that go into it. And it doesn't just take one small team to do this, it takes a lot of people from a lot of different parts of the corporation. Can you discuss some of the tools and people that you use to bring into this solution?
If I talk about people first, of who we brought in, top level leadership. You needed senior level leadership to buy into executive representation, to understand why it's important to invest into this program. So they were the first level. Then you need HR partners and the managers of the participants themselves to buy in to this development and support their participant along the way. The other thing that we needed, and we have to measure success. So our HR analytics team is also critical. There's so many other pieces to the puzzle along the way. So again, leveraging data as a tool to support us. So those have been some of the components.
Right. And I understand. So we talked about this started 10 years ago, this transformation,
Yes.
just about, and around 2015, correct?
Yes. So the first cohort graduated in 2015.
Mhm.
We are currently just started cohort 9.
Oh, wow. That's a big success in itself. How long this transformation has been going on for. What exactly has been a vast improvement over the last 10 years that you've seen, and what might need some still tweaking, some work on?
When I think about the program itself, we've had to evolve over those 10 years, right? We've survived a pandemic. Life has changed. So we went from a very much in-person program and intervention then to a completely one that was globally remote, working around global time zones even. So that was a change. This year, we're taking the best of both of those worlds and we've custom created a hybrid program, leveraging again our partner SHRM Enterprise Solutions to do that. So I would say that one is you have to be able to evolve the program over time. And that's been a success because it's enabled us to add additional components to the program, like executive presence training, or even when we do this training on site, we can have roundtables with our global leaders. So those sort of elements that we're able to build into the program. So I'd say those are some of the successes. There's also some metric successes. I mean, truly, we've gone from 14% of back in 2014 of that was our representation of global women executives. We've jumped up to 22% of our executives are women, and that is a phenomenal increase. And so we're directly seeing that impact of on representation goals.
We love to see it. We love to see
Yes.
that impact, especially over a 10-year, strategy, a plan, something you worked so hard to do. And while we're talking about the last 10 years, I would
Yes.
like to talk about the next year. We're going to be approaching 2025 soon. I
Yeah.
know you already have goals and you're already working on, if not already achieving those goals. Can you talk about the goals you have? Where are you in this process? And do you think you're going to make that goal?
So our new goal is to achieve 27% of executive representation by the end of our fiscal year 25-26. We are currently on track. So although our ESG report reports 22%, we have had a promotion cycle since that number has been established and we are on continuing to climb. I think we're going to come close. And whether we hit the goal, we will celebrate for a moment and we will set another one and we will continue. And if we fall short, it's just another excuse to double down. So we're going to keep moving forward with our goals, but celebrating that 10 years of the program with cohort 10 to be determined, but I know it's going to be special.
And can you elaborate a little bit more about those challenges you faced over the past 10 years?
You know, I'm sure our challenges are not unique to just Lenovo, but when I really look at what prevents women from moving into those executive roles, right? We have to look at a couple different levers. This program is directly associated with promotion, but we also have to look at the levers of, attrition as well as hiring. And when I reflect on the data, right, the data tells a story. And we had some attrition of our key pipeline, not necessarily executives, but of our pipeline during the pandemic. And so that's something that we're looking to again shore up and rebuild. The other portion of that is hiring. So making sure that our HR processes have as much equity as possible and we continue to focus on finding the best qualified candidates but ensuring that we are also considering women as part of that, qualified women.
Exactly. And we talked about the past 10 years and the challenges and the successes, the toolkits, the strategies, the people you've had to bring on board. What if there are a few things or one thing that was most consistent throughout the past 10 years that you felt that it were, part of the success story?
I would attribute it to 2 things. I think one is our engagement with SHRM Enterprise Solutions is specifically around the coaching. I'll talk to that one first. I think the women themselves, it is the most requested item. They are actually usually disappointed that there are not more sessions of coaching that comes in the program. But I think that this really touches on their individual readiness for those executive roles. And it takes this incredible program and content that they're learning, but it helps bring that individual focus so that they feel like they know exactly what they need to develop. And so I think that because no matter how we've delivered the program in the past, whether it's been in person at Women in Leadership Institute or whether we've done it virtually, they've always had that 360 in coaching. I think the second part is engaging and embedding this program in some of our HR processes. So leveraging our succession planning to find our nominees for for the program and making sure that then that they are surrounded by both their leader and HR partner in what we call a talent team meeting. And those talent team meetings are really hyper focused again on her individual development plan that she's gotten from her 360 and that she's continuing to, use with her coach, and they then can help her execute on some of those developmental items. And it might not necessarily be things she needs to like skills. Some of it could just be networking, making sure she has that exposure, making sure she has those people speaking in the room for her. Maybe it is mentorship. It can look different for each person, but we need that her senior leader, her executive leader, and her HR partner helping facilitate that along the way.
It always takes a team, right?
It does.
Can't just do it one person.
Not at all.
So, taking a little sidestep just to bring our listeners into the perspective of a female in a leadership role or a female looking to be in a leadership role. You've talked about confidence, in your sessions, and you've talked about confidence, speaking with us earlier. And confidence is a tough thing for women to fully embrace. They may have it, but it's about showing it and believing that they deserve the positions and that they can at least try for it. Can you talk about that? Give a little insight about why it's so important to realize that confidence is an opportunity here for women to grow in.
Absolutely. Uh, I've had my fingers on our women's leadership development program for almost my entire 9.5 years at Lenovo, even starting with the very end of cohort one. And what I can tell you is I've sat in a number of women in leadership institutes. I've been a sponge myself, soaking up all the learnings. And what I can say is the model starts with tackling that imposter syndrome, or as, Sherm calls it, the inner critic. And I think that it's so important that we start there, right? If we understand what it is and when she starts talking, right, that can really help our women in this program understand that, sometimes it's the stories you tell yourselves and recognizing that it's not, you can't just be quiet anymore. You can't just sit there and hope that your good work shows for you. You need to be a strategic driver in pushing your career forward. You need to get clear on what you want. You need to make that ask. So I think that's why confidence and um, the model for advancing women leaders has a very systematic way of taking women through, because you can't just, there's no 1, 2, 3, and boom, you have confidence. But that walking you through those 7 hurdles and what that looks like and what your personal challenges are each, that's how they start to uncover and build their own confidence.
Right. And I read the book on the inner critic, and I absolutely loved it because it told you to not just put it away, but to tell it to, it's okay and that I got this and here's how we're going to make things better and here's how we're going to move forward. So I absolutely love that you brought up the inner critic because a lot of women do have that. A lot of people in general do. But especially women, it can take a toll on them as well. And shifting back to our conversation just about the last 10 years, um, especially today, more recently, have you seen any new workplace culture trends, maybe DE&I, that you've seen has pushed Lenovo to pivot over the last few years? Because we've seen a lot of workplace culture changes.
It's interesting. Yes, there is a lot of noise out there, and and other companies have pivoted, but what I'm proud to say is that we've stayed the course. Our vision as an organization is smarter technology for all. You cannot build smarter technology for all unless you have all as part of your organization, as all being part of your innovators, all being part of your leadership. And so we understand the value of that inclusion and diversity and what it takes to make great technology. So that I think has transcended in our continued commitment. And the fact that we see results and our leaders have seen the direct impact of our executive representation mix changing and increasing with more women. Um, and our stock price has only gone up. So I'm not saying it's directly correlated, but I'm telling you, it's not hurting.
Exactly, exactly. I know that with SHRM, we are big on inclusion, and that is what SHRM is focusing on is inclusion and diversity because and Johnny C. Taylor Jr., our president and CEO, even says this often. He says, "You can have a diverse workplace, but if nobody who is diverse in that workplace feels included in decision or included in opportunities, then what's the point?" And so
Absolutely.
that is such an amazing thing that we push forward. How have you really incorporated inclusion into your mindset? I know you've done strategies, I know you've done programs, I know you've done so much, but really your own mindset and making sure inclusion was at the forefront.
You know, it's been embedded in our values for a while. We have teamwork and trust as one of our core values, but we also have an additional set of what we call the Lenovo leadership priorities. And integrity and inclusion is at the bottom and the foundation of what we expect out of every single people leader because we've recognized an inclusive leader is one that pulls people in, that gives them psychological safety so they know that they can innovate. And if they fail, they can go and iterate and create something new and even better. So that's really at the forefront of what we believe that people leaders should be doing for every single person at the organization. So I'm proud to say that's embedded in who we are at Lenovo.
That's wonderful to hear. I absolutely believe it with the program that you've pushed forward and the effort you've made over the last 10 years. What would you from somebody who's worked so hard to be
Yeah.
a part of this in this leadership role that you are in right now, what would you say to other women who again may be looking for that opportunity but are working on their confidence and aren't really sure where to start?
Part of it is knowing, what do you want? And don't be afraid to go for more. Um, don't be afraid of that executive role. There are women who have paved the way for us. Talk with them. Most people are willing to give you 30 minutes of time. Have a virtual coffee, have an in person coffee. Ask somebody how they've gotten there, especially in your own organization. And take those lessons and again, start to build that strategic network and understand what you want. So, but I would say don't count yourself out before you've even tried.
I also found it was always wonderful to find another woman in the workplace, and it's okay to be vulnerable sometimes. I think vulnerability has people relate to each other and they say, "Okay, you know what? I'm going to support you." I have a coworker who supports me. She's wonderful. She's kind of just volunteered to be my mentor. And she has helped me say, don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to take on those opportunities. Do you agree with that? What's your thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely. I am maybe too much of an overshare. So I am completely an open book, but I feel like that humanity of understanding that, it's not always easy and sharing those hard experiences as well as your wins with each other because we don't celebrate them enough. Um, that's what helps propel you forward and makes you better.
And I love this personal aspect you've put to this conversation. I really appreciate the insight for other women out there. And regarding Lenovo, what's next? What I
Yeah.
know we talked about the 26 fiscal year goal, but where is Lenovo putting its focus and resources to ensure continued success?
Absolutely. Well, when it comes to women leadership, right, it's not only achieving that goal of 27%, but then I want to see us achieve 30, then 35. And then if our workforce is still 37% women, I'm look for the day when we have 37% executive women leaders that mirrors our employee population. So I think and believe that our trajectory is only up. But I would also say there's still work to be done, and that is on the pipeline of women up to executive role. We need to make sure that when we hire early career talent, that they have a true path of moving up through the organization. And especially at that first rung of people leadership, that we don't want to lose our women there. We need to make sure that we're retaining them and growing them and building their confidence even earlier.
Yes, building confidence slowly but surely for some people, of course. And when it comes to other employers, other leaders, and people managers who are the key to a lot of things, what is some advice you may have, maybe 3 points of advice when it comes to addressing the inclusivity of women in leadership roles and the promotion of them and, overall just making them feel included?
We have a model at Lenovo around inclusive behaviors, and it's called the CARE model. So C is for communicate across differences, A is act in allyship, R is recognize and mitigate bias, and E is ensure psychological safety. So those 4 points, and again, it's hard to say recognize, or excuse me, ensure psychological safety. There's no magic 3 steps that you can make someone feel safe. But if you're communicating, you're standing up and calling out inappropriateness in your team, and if you are truly trying to recognize and mitigate your own biases, you will create psychological safety on your team. And that goes for anyone, whether you're a woman or man, anything.
That's wonderful. It seems like you've come a very long way over the past 10 years, and you have a lot more to go because you're just continuing that success. You're reaching further and further, right?
Absolutely. I am really optimistic about the future and where it holds. And the landscape of talent's gonna change, especially with the introduction of AI, right? This is the next big brink of technology, so it's impacting our workforce, but we need to make sure that, again, we're bringing everyone with us.
And for listeners who may be in leadership roles, we talked about looking in the mirror a little bit, looking inward before deciding what strategy to take and how to address it. Can you talk about how it's so important for everybody, not just men, not just women, not just, different demographics, but everybody to really look inward before they, look outward and decide?
Absolutely. I think part of that is, looking at yourself and your own leaders, um, making sure that you're ready to take on this challenge, but also looking at, and getting those top level leaders, finding those champions. There are going to be some people who are ready to go and ready to endorse, a women's leadership development program and invest, but find those top level leaders. But then I would also say there's a piece of this, though, that's really important too, and that's data. Know your workforce, know what you need to do. So, and then set those goals.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jen, for your time and your insight. We loved
Yeah.
hearing your perspective, just as a personal perspective for a woman in a leadership role. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Anne. I appreciate it.
And if you enjoyed this episode of All Things Work, please like, share, and subscribe, comment, and share with your own teams. Share your thoughts. We want to hear from you. We want you to join the conversation. You can find more content on All Things Work on shrm.org/allthingswork. For All Things Work, I'm Anne Sparaco.